Hi, and welcome back. Today I want to discuss a topic that is very consistent among those with anxious attachment style, which is really seeking and wanting closure. This is something that I've certainly experienced, and when I think back to my past relationships, I feel this part of me that just wanted to have another conversation or ask another question or get a little more clear on the reasons and the why and the things that I felt were left unsaid. And it's very interesting because as I worked to heal my anxious attachment and went through other endings of relationships or dating relationships, I didn't feel that. I felt like I could really peacefully let go without needing to know. So there was a visceral switch that happened. And this came up because I was speaking with a client last week. And it's got me thinking, why does that happen? Why is it happening more for the anxious attacher versus avoidant? So I felt into it. I did a little bit of research and I wanted to share it here. If you're having the experience of wanting closure and not getting it, it probably feels really out of control. So your body is undoubtedly triggered by this pulling away or triggered by the disappearing of this person or the ending of the relationship. When we have anxious attachment, any sort of insecurity or not knowing the answer or not knowing the reason or believing we don't know the reason can be really overwhelming. Before I go any further, I want to highlight what I just said there, believing we don't know the reason. Sometimes we let our mind run around trying to solve a problem that we actually already have the answer to. We may just not be willing to see how simple the answer really is or that it's right in front of us. So in this case, a feeling like I need to know the reason, I need to know more. What was it actually? What was it? Is there a chance that you might just be overlooking the simplicity of the reason? And the reason might be that they didn't have the capacity for the type of relationship that you wanted. And so this fixating on a need for closure and a need for a reason really just is your primal brain trying to gain some reassurance or gain more evidence or more information that the relationship is truly over so that you can continue on with your life. Sometimes there's part of us that's thinking, what if I said this? And if I talk to them this way, maybe something will change, instead of us just connecting to what is right now, which allows us to come back into the present moment and operate from what we do have. We have to operate from the evidence that we do have right in front of us, regardless of if you have a gut feeling that there was more to it, or that you know in your heart that he cared about you deeper than that, and this behavior doesn't match what he actually felt. Unfortunately, we have to work with what is actually here. What words did we actually hear from them, and can we just believe what we already have? Another reason why not having closure is so hard for those with anxious attachment tendencies is that we tend to hyper focus on the person in the relationship, and we can hit a point where we actually have difficulty regulating our own emotions without them. We have outsourced a lot of power to this person that we're dating or relating to or infatuated with. And we've started to decide that when they're interacting with me in a specific way, then I can be happy. So if all of a sudden that person is gone, then some ways your source of feeling regulated and your source of emotional regulation has also disappeared. So there's going to be a part of you that's saying, I need to get back to that, I need to fix this, and it can feel really panicky. And beyond all of the uncomfortable feelings that you're feeling inside regarding this topic, there's probably the question of, why won't they just talk to me about it? Why can't they make time for a phone call with me? Why won't they see me? Why won't they let us have one more conversation? And girl, I have so been there. It's so painful. It really is so painful. And if I could grant you a closure conversation, I would love to. But the reality is that you might even get that conversation and then still come up with more to say later, or more thoughts or more questions. So with that in mind, I want to talk about what might be happening on the other side. Chances are this person that you've been relating to or dating has some avoidant tendencies, right? We know that the anxious attachers tend to attract the avoidant attachers, and it causes pretty painful dynamics. So if we think of avoidants are pretty skilled at compartmentalizing their emotions. So they have an ability to detach themselves emotionally from the relationship. This can also sometimes happen before it ends, and it's common that they would actually detach before the relationship ends and then end the relationship. So they kind of feel safe before it ends. And while that sounds super sad and painful, we just have to keep in mind that it's their own coping mechanism, just like we have ours. So from that lens, we can consider how some of the avoidant tendency might see closure as irrelevant or as an unnecessary emotional burden. They don't want to go into a vulnerable conversation, so they are probably going to try and avoid it. Avoidant individuals are typically uncomfortable with emotional vulnerability, so if they are being asked to confront their feelings, or if they feel like they're going to be required to confront their feelings, then they're likely going to turn down that opportunity. And individuals with the avoidant tendencies may also be more inclined to focus on moving forward and starting new rather than anything that is about dwelling in the past, because that's also how they've kept themselves independent and safe. And while the anxious attacher wants everything to be clean and you don't have any bad blood and you want to be amicable and you want to be friends and feel close still, you want it to be left nice because you have this place in your heart that's saying, I don't want to fight with you. I don't want this to be messy. I want to talk it out. They're looking at it differently. They just want to move forward. Doesn't necessarily matter what's in the past. They're not really willing to look at it anyway type of attitude. And my last point here is that those who are avoidant or with avoidant tendencies are accustomed to rely on themselves for emotional support and emotional validation. So when someone's asking for it from them, especially post-breakup or post-separation, there's going to be something within them that says, I don't need that, or I don't get that, so I'm not going to give it to you. And of course, this is a case-by-case basis, and I can never say all avoidants or all anxious attachers are going to behave this way or have this experience. We're just looking at general patterns that would cause this dynamic of the anxious attacher seeking closure and the avoidant attacher being unwilling to give it to them. And everything I listed is not the healthiest, highest, most loving form of communication from either side. It's not, as the anxious attacher, in our highest good to feel out of control or like we want to control them or we need something to move through the breakup. It's not in the highest loving expression for the avoidant attacher to feel safer to disappear or ghost and be unwilling to be in any emotional vulnerability. But that's what's happening. So as you, who is likely experiencing more of the anxious tendency and the anxious experience, your job is to really hold yourself in this, knowing that even if you got the answer for your anxious system, it might still not be enough. And also remembering that you will be okay if you don't have another conversation with this person. I know it's hard. I know it sucks. I wish it wasn't this way for you also. But the feeling that you want from the conversation, which might be a sense of ease or understanding, you can create that within yourself and within your other relationships. It doesn't have to just happen through your mind. And honestly, that might not work because your body and your nervous system and subconscious are very powerful. You can do an exercise where you simply write out a letter to this person of everything that you want to say. After that, you're welcome to tear it up or burn it, or you could send it to them. I'll let you be very discerning around that, making sure you're honoring their boundaries to the best of your ability and also doing it from a place of I don't need a response. And in my own experience, of which there have been many, of wanting to have this person in front of me just one more time so I could just fix it or just say this thing, and I didn't get it, I sometimes got it months or even years later. I had quite a crazy closure conversation with someone 5 or 6 years after the relationship ended. It was very interesting to be in that conversation and really see how taxing that experience had been for them when I had actually moved through it years before. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm saying that it does happen, and when it does, but you've already done the work, you just realize that you didn't need it. But if you only try and do the practices as a workaround to pretend to get your own closure in hopes that they'll come back and give you closure, that's not gonna work because energetically, the universe knows. Now, if you're feeling ready to do that work, but feel like you need a little bit of accountability to actually get into your inner world and get into your journal, then I have to tell you about my baby of a project that I have been building for the last 2 years, which is a membership space for women that is full of practices and prompts and specifically guided somatic work for healing anxious attachment. And I host that on a platform called School, which is kind of like Facebook groups, but better. It's perfect for hosting communities. There's this like classroom section that has all these resources in it. And with a lot of the podcast episodes, there's corresponding episodes in the membership for you to pair along with episode in School. This is a monthly membership. I add stuff all the time. There's also live calls 2 times a month at least. We usually have a live workshop, which includes a teaching portion and somatic work, and then a Q&A call, which is for just coaching for you and support and a place to be held and seen in the current moment of your process. So it's such a nurturing, beautiful group of intelligent, grounded, deep self-aware women in there, and I just love to nurture that space. So there'll be a link below in the description for you to check it out and gather all the tools you need in terms of emotional regulation and self-soothing and doing deeper inner work and feeling amazing and grounded and confident in your body so that you can attract the best love of your life. I'm going to leave you with this for now. I hope this is bringing a little bit of ease to your heart and understanding of what you might have experienced or what you may be going through in terms of closure and the end of a relationship. Wishing you a gentle and beautiful healing cycle as you navigate wherever you're currently at. Lots of love and see you next time.